share my perspective on things that you can do to figure out who to listen to, right? And these are concepts that you can apply regardless of who you are and regardless of what topic we're talking about. So as I'm going into this, if you're popping in here or if you're watching it on the replay, let me know if you've heard some phrases or if you've seen some posts where you have thought, hey, this doesn't make any sense. You know, this expert is saying this and this expert is saying that. And let me give you some examples. In online marketing, right? I'm going to start there for a minute. There's conflicting advice right now. People are like, do launches, do courses, post on social media every day. Don't post it all, just send emails, right? So anyone who's looking to build their business online might feel confused about who to listen to. Another topic that's a bit broader is health, okay? I am sure that regardless of where you're at in your health journey, you have seen, read, heard conflicting advice in regards to, like right now, some of the trends. Right now, everyone's talking about fasting. You know, is fasting for you? What style fasting is for you? You know, if your body type is this, do that. If your body type is this, do that. Have you ever felt confused about who to listen to in that area? I know that for me, when my youngest daughter was struggling to gain weight early on in her life, the pediatricians and honestly the nutritional clinic, they were really pushing for her to have a feeding tube. Okay, so that's a very invasive procedure. And for me, it was a good example of where, you know, I was doing research, I was reading conflicting information, the people I was talking to, the experts I was trusting were giving me their opinions, but all of it really conflicted with my sense of my daughter, watching her behavior, observing what was coming from her, and being able to grab this sense of really feeling confident that I was trusting advice that was going to work for her. Okay, so I'm gonna continue with that example for a moment, because in the health industry we can apply this to a lot of things. So in my daughter's particular case, you know, she was not even on the growth chart, right? Which was one of the reasons why they were suggesting giving her a feeding tube. And I did listen to them, and I want to be sure that anyone who watches this knows I'm not saying don't listen to experts, right? But in the case of my daughter, you know, there needed to be other input, other sources of information, right? So one of the things that I asked for my doctor or her doctor to do was I asked them to use the World Health Organization's growth chart instead of the chart for the United States, right? Because this gave us different information. And although my daughter was still low on the chart, it wasn't as low or alarming as it was compared to the US, because it was giving us a global scale of reference rather than simply the US, okay? Now, in that particular case, I felt comfortable asking those questions, asking for that recommendation, because I was clear on who I am, on who my daughter is. I was also clear on the differences between my daughter and the average young girl in the United States, right? And those weren't things that I thought were wrong with her. They were just differences that I was very clear about and confident that if we looked at more information, we'd be able to find a path forward together that made sense for her. And that's really what I want to talk to you about being able to do. When you are researching information, or even if you're just scrolling on social media and you see something that you think might apply to you, you really want to pause for a moment and you want to first think about the concept of clarity, right? Clarity on who you are, right? Who you're becoming, right? So we're always kind of moving forward. So you might be right here at this stage of your life right now, and then you're looking forward to becoming this person or growing in these particular areas. And when you're clear about that, It helps you know what is or isn't for you. But the second piece to that is that you have to be confident in who you are now and in your ability to become who you want to be. Because if you're not having that kind of like that proportionate clarity and confidence, then you're going to struggle asking questions. You're going to read something and you're going to assume that you're in the wrong and that you just don't know how to do this thing. You're going to make assumptions that, well, if that's what I have to do to be successful, or if that's what I have to do to lose weight, or if that's what I have to do to grow my business, I can't do that, right? And if you're not, and if that's how you're feeling, you're not going to take steps to move you forward. Another example of that clarity and confidence and how they work together is if you are constantly being bombarded by information, which to be honest, most of us are, and if you have a sense that everyone else knows more than you do about what's right for you, you're going to be overwhelmed by all of this information, and most likely you're not going to take any action. Right? So if you sometimes struggle with a sense of procrastinating and then feeling guilty about, oh, I'm not moving forward, I'm not doing anything, I'm just overwhelmed, I'm anxious about this, it might be time to not only just take a deep breath, but go back to that idea of clarity and confidence, because not everything is for everyone. Not everything is for you. Not everything applies to you and your situation. So you really want to be able to give yourself the space mentally, physically, emotionally, so that you can get clear on who you are. What are your goals? What is your vision, right? That's a really, really important piece. And I'll share with you personally, it was just about 10 years ago this year that I left a very, very successful career in the cellular industry. And no one in my life, none of the experts or friends or family, supported that decision. Right? So all of the external input that I was getting was, you're making a mistake, this is a bad idea, right? However, it was the best thing that I did for myself, because, and I knew that it was going to be. I didn't know how, but I knew that it was. I was confident that it was, because I was clear on who I was, clear on the changes that I wanted to make, and clear on the priorities that I had for myself, right? And so that's really what we're talking about when we talk about clarity, is are you able to identify yourself outside of the cultural norms and expectations, outside of your family's norms and expectations, or your communities, or your spouses. And this is where we really get into conversations about autonomy versus boundaries, but all of that is wrapped up in clarity and confidence, which are two things that you need in order to know who to listen to, which expert advice is actually going to make sense for me. Now, if you're watching this, I would love for you to just let me know, did that make sense to you? Does that resonate with you? Can you think of an example that you want to share, or something that we could kind of talk about in future discussions? Because this is a really important piece, and I think everybody can benefit from it. The third thing that I want to talk about in regards to this topic is the idea of consistency. Sometimes when we perceive ourselves as being inconsistent in our behaviors, our goals, our thought processes, we can allow that to take our confidence down. Right? And we can allow that to influence our perception of other people and other people's success, other people's advice, other people's opinions. And yet, we need that consistency piece along with clarity and confidence to be clear about who and what we are allowing to influence us. Okay? And influence is really like a key word for this whole conversation, because when we're talking about conflicting expert advice, we're really talking about who are we letting influence us? who are the people, whether it's people close to us, people we don't know on the internet, a doctor that we might go visit, or a doctor who wrote a book that we might read. We're talking about, do we want to allow this person to influence us, right? Do I want them to influence me? And so here's a couple questions that I wanted to give you to ask yourself to help you identify whether or not you want to let this person influence you. So you can ask yourself, what is their experience? And I don't mean like how long have they been a quote unquote expert in this industry. I mean, how can you find out what their experience is in terms of life and work, and how those experiences are creating a bias within them, right? See, and I use the word bias in a neutral meaning. So I'm not saying that it's not a negative thing, right? We all have a bias of some sort, many of them really, based on our experiences. And that just kind of helps shapes our individual opinions, our take on things, and it also kind of helps shape our preferences. So when you're asking yourself, what is someone's experience? What is their bias? What is their preference? It's not in a positive or negatively perceived way. It's about information, because it's going to let you know, okay, this person had this life experience, and so this avenue of advice is really important to them. Going back to our health example, if someone personally lost a lot of weight using a particular diet, they're going to have a bias towards that diet because it worked for them. And yet that doesn't mean that it's going to work for you, right? So bringing yourself intellectually, cognitively to a place where you can ask those types of questions when you're evaluating someone else's input, it's going to help you figure out, okay, like, what are the similarities between me and this person? Do we have a similar background? Do we have similar interests? Do we have similar goals? What are the life experiences? Because you're going to know that their bias and really their expert advice is always going to be kind of moving in that particular direction. And that's not right or wrong, but it is up to you to identify whether or not that's right for you. And really, my take on all of this and my opinion is that the goal really needs to be about you feeling completely confident in figuring out the clarity piece and the consistency piece for yourself, because then it's going to be really, really easy for you to see a post or read a book or talk to a doctor and know, okay, it makes sense for me to listen to this person, or no, that's just not for me, right? And that's really what my goal is for you. Whether we talk about the videos that I make, being in this group, messages, the work I do with clients, it's really not about me wanting you to have a life like mine or me wanting you to think the way that I do. Really, my goal, or my bias, you could say, is I want to help everyone learn how to think for themselves if they want to. Right? I want you to feel comfortable creating a life that works for you. Goals, lifestyle, personality, fashion, whatever it is, right? And that means, in my opinion, that you need to feel comfortable becoming the main influence in your own life. Right? And that's really how I'm going to wrap this conversation up and let you know that that's the goal of myself and my whole Onward Endeavors team. So whether you have personal goals or business goals, you can count on us to help you develop the mindset and the skill set to be able to internally evaluate, internally ask the questions, and filter through information so that you can create the life that you want. All right, everybody, I hope you have a fantastic Monday. Please leave your comments below. You can also always email us at admin@onward-endeavors.com.